22 past the hour. Welcome back to Morning Joe. Joining us now, the editor-in-chief of More magazine, Lesley Seymour. In next month's issue, the magazine's article, Running for President in Heels, takes a look at what has changed since the 2008 campaign for women running for the top office. Also with us, Salon.com writer Rebecca Traister, author of Big Girls Don't Cry, the election that changed everything for American women. Perfect pairing.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on board. So you didn't see the Hillary video?
No, show me.
Where is she? Where is she?
She was in Hawaii at the
yes,
Asia
that's
Pacific
right.
Economic Conference, and she was doing a photo op with one of the leaders here. Let's watch
this.
it.
This is her reaction.
I hope you all captured it. People wonder what the chief executive is doing.
She's pretty cool.
She's gotten so much more comfortable with herself and with being able to react. Like, I mean, you know, being in power in the way that she's been the past few years has really been good for her and her self-presentation, I think.
Absolutely.
You said something so interesting, though, when we were talking in the break, that people love Hillary after she loses, and that this is a trend. Explain that a little bit.
Well, it's less of a trend, but the thing that, among the things that have put people off of Hillary for years, for the 20 years she's been in the public eye, are that she's a powerful, threatening woman. And, there's a history with her of having been brought low by one thing or another. In the most recent iteration, it was losing the nomination to Barack Obama. And it makes it a little easier for those who might be threatened or put off by a really powerful woman to see her knocked down a peg. It's easier to then love her more unconditionally. And that's part of what we're seeing, though we're seeing a lot of other things with Hillary. She's a phenomenal Secretary of State. People do love her, and they loved her by the end of her campaign. So there are a lot of factors at work here, but that, I think, is one of them.
So do you think it would be different if she were to run in 2016? Would people feel differently about her?
Yes.
Or do you think we'd see this again where people sort of turn against her because she's running to be president?
I think you'd see a little bit of repetition and that our issues aren't going away overnight. Right. But one of the things, and I think this is something that Lesley's able to talk about and the story is about, is we're getting increasingly comfortable with every woman who runs for president, with every major female politician. Our eyes get adjusted a little bit more to the idea of a woman standing on a debate stage. And so it gets a fraction easier
more
every time there's another run.
Lesley, your article says maybe now for the first time we're beginning to view and judge a female candidate not for her sex, but for her stated beliefs and policies. This is, of course, in the latest issue of More magazine, which I love what you've done with this magazine.
Thank you.
You really have brought it into the future. But is it that we're beginning to actually see them for their views?
That's what we set out to do, and what's wonderful is Rebecca's quoted in the piece and brings such wonderful insight to it. This is a crazy idea, but we set out to say, has anything changed in 4 years with a woman running for president? And we did everything. We're not talking about policy. We're talking strictly about her presentation as a woman and femininity. And we sort of put it on a continuum. We said, here's Hillary on this side in terms of clothing, in terms of all her presentations. She was a woman masquerading as a man. She had her pantsuits. She hid her family. Chelsea you couldn't talk to her. You couldn't find her. Then you go to the other side and you bring out Sarah Palin, sexy, blowing kisses, cleavage, those leather things, everything. People were calling her a MILF, all that kind of stuff, right? That's the other side. Then in the middle, and I know you guys are going to laugh, here is Bachmann, not her policies, but her presentation as a woman. She is really right in the middle. She presents herself as a feminine woman. She doesn't throw it in your face. She has her children around. They are not hidden, but they are not in your face. She's right down the middle. And we have actually stopped that discussion. In fact, when our reporter went out there to ask about clothing and women running for president, she was actually chastised. People were saying, why are you even calling me and asking about her clothes? Which is quite a leap, because that was not happening before. And so I think what we are doing now is we are finding that we can talk about women as who they are running for president aside from their femininity. Does that mean that sexism is gone? No. We have those terrible photos of her at the Iowa Fair biting into a hot dog. Horribly sexualized photos. We have all that. But in terms of the feminine presentation, it's a really kooky piece. You gotta look at the pictures and you'll see. She's in the middle.
Do you think that in talking about the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, that her role, her image has been enhanced because of substance that she has and substance that many people perceive Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann do not have.
Absolutely. I think you're in a totally different place now with Hillary. I think there are a lot of people who felt that they couldn't vote for her because in a way she had assumed the position not legitimately. Now she's totally legitimate. And I think she could actually run, and it would be a very different experience in terms of women identifying with her.
And even the word tough, as it's applied to women, it's applied in just a completely different manner. When it's applied to a guy, hey, yeah, he's tough, we like that. And you say, this woman is tough, and people go, ooh, ooh, ooh. You know,
I think that scares people more when it's a woman who's tough, right, Rebecca?
Well, it both scares people, but also our expectations and what we want and what we're nervous about in women is constantly changing. Again, with everyone. One of the things that I'm struck by listening to both Lesley and listening to your comment about comparing Hillary's substance to Palin or Bachmann is we're still talking about such a small sample size.
Yeah.
We're talking about 3 women, right? So if you start, so of course the idea that Hillary looks substantive next to these 2 other women as if those are the only options, right? Whereas you have a whole history of substantive male politicians versus, Dan Quayle's, right? So, and when you talk about the moderate, that there are 3 options right now. There's the Hillary, the Palin, and the Bachmann. It really brings home that we're still talking about 3 women out of more than 2 centuries of American presidential history. So
even though when we did our homework, there's a great little chart in there. It's 105 women who've actually run for president at one point or another. You just never heard of them. They're
since
like
before they were allowed
Socialist
to vote.
Workers Party, all that stuff. Yeah. They've been there. We just have never ever gotten them, bubbled them to the top.
On a lower level, in terms of, for example, running for Senate or trying to emerge in Washington below the presidency, I watched sexism. Maybe that's too strong a word, but that definite, immediate kind of misogynistic attitude breakout toward Kirsten Gillibrand.
Yeah.
When she first came on the scene, I know a group of guys who laughed. Yeah. And that same group of guys, like 6 months later, after watching her and meeting her, said, watch her. She's going to be major. And it was like, what happened? Their immediate reaction was still instinctive. Right. And by the way, there were some women as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And then they kind of got used to it, and then they thought, oh, wow, she's impressive. So there's kind of an instinctive thing that I think is still there.
It is readjusting, again, our vision of what leadership can look like. We have 2 centuries of what leadership at every level looks like, and it's white and it's male. Often it's old and it's tall, know? And so just simply being able to envision leaders who don't look like that changes our ability to appreciate them.
You talked about the small sample size. I remember after Sarah Palin was introduced at the convention in 2008. I was interviewing a group of women who had supported Hillary Clinton, and they'd heard from the McCain campaign that they were hoping to capture some of the disgruntled Hillary voters.
Right.
And these women said, what an insult to us to think that just because she's a woman that I would go vote for her. But so that's still where a lot of the mindset was at that time, and probably still is.
Well, that was the old vote for me because I have a uterus.
Yeah. Right. Oh, well, okay, that's one way back.
The point that you raised is really interesting, and I would refer to it as the male fear factor about some women. For instance,
and female.
But like Elizabeth Warren. I mean, in Washington, I mean, a lot of guys resented her, didn't like her.
Right.
Why? Not necessarily because policy or ideology. It was just, oh, she's smarter than I am.
But it was
and
also
she's telling me that she is, by the way, because she's not afraid to.
Yeah.
But she was also chastising people. It was a little bit about policy, because Elizabeth Warren was somebody who went in and said, hey, where's the TARP money? Right. What happened to it? She was actually asking hard questions, so it was perhaps the gendered fear factor combined with the fact that she was actually coming in as a kind of regulator and a watchdog and actually
And I think more women
need
to come in and get in people's faces and do exactly what Elizabeth Warren did, what Hillary Clinton has done, what Kirsten Gillibrand is doing. Get people used to it, because it's not just their fault. You know what I mean? We've got to step up, and we've got to not be afraid to get in someone's face, reset the relationship 2 minutes later when it doesn't go well, move on like men do. And I think a lot of women are beginning to do that and are enjoying the game, actually.
There's a whole Freudian thing that people will tell you about, too, the whole fear factor with women in power, which I'm sure you're aware of, which is the all-encompassing mother figure.
Right.
Which, especially for men, it is something they have to pull themselves away from as they grow up, and that's the ultimate fear. Is this?
Are you away from that yet,
No.
I'm just telling you, Freud. That's all. I'm giving you the Freud background.
Oh, Lord. It's often disturbing with you, but never with you, Lesley James.
No, we're not afraid.
Traster. The magazine is so awesome. Again, I really love what you've done with it. I've been watching it evolve under Lesley's jurisdiction. This is a great issue. Up next, Stephen King's